Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon. So today I'm going to be showing you guys a new website that Royal made. Basically, it's going to have top players on their champions, giving you guides for their different champions, and I wrote a couple guides for the website. Again, the website's called wildriftguides.com. I'll link it in the description and everything like that. Right now it's in its beta. They're kind of, starting it out, introducing the website. So for now, there's just guides on 5 champions. They're written by Royal Crisis King, a Pike player. Royal wrote the Caston guide. And then Pablo wrote the Akali guide. So all of these players have hit rank 1. I don't know if Royal's hit rank 1 in Caston before, but I mean, obviously he's been rank 1 in the game. So he's very good as well and very good at Caston. And then all the other guides have been written by people who have been rank 1. I wrote a Jayce and a Thresh guide. I'm going to read you guys the Jayce guide today. Then we'll go over the Thresh guide tomorrow as well. There's also macro guides on the website. Just going to show you that as well. You can click them on the different role and everything. So obviously, again, if you want to read all these things, you can go onto the website yourself. But for now, we're going to go over the Jayce guide. And so I'm basically just going to read you out some of the things. I mean, again, I'm not going to read out every single detail, but basically, I've been rank 5 Sovereign, rank 6 Sovereign playing autofill. And I've played Jayce, and pretty much every season have around a 58 to 60% win rate when I played Jayce. I've been rank 1 on him 3 times, doing it mid lane or top lane. Again, you can see here, my mid lane account. This is a different time when I was playing at top lane. You can see here, again, been rank 5, rank 6. This season, I've been ranked 10, or ranked 9 even, I think I hit this season. And again, Jayce, one of my most played champions. So consistently have played a lot of Jayce and climbed very high doing that. So that's overall, again, that. So now going into the build. And the build on this website, this overall picture that you see here is a decent default build, but it's not the overall best build for every scenario. Because again, there's a lot of different kind of things, and that's why we write about it here. So you're pretty much always going to rush Boots of Dynaism. After you're doing that, you're kind of going to have 2 options for your second item with this build, and then we'll talk about an alternative build for especially top lane as a bruiser after that. But for this build, which is going to be kind of the more damage focused build, but still good as a bruiser, you're going to go Youmuu's Ghostblade if the enemy are pretty squishy. You're going to go Eclipse as your first item / second item, like first real item after Boots. You're going to go Eclipse if the enemy are a bit tankier. After that, if you went Eclipse, then you're going to go Youmuu's second most of the time. And if you went Youmuu's, then you're going to go Duskblade second. Now you're going to switch these flat penetration items like Youmuu's or Ghostblade or Duskblade for things like Serpent's Fang if the enemy have shielding. So say that they have a bunch of shielding, then instead of Youmuu's first, you might go for Serpent's Fang first. But again, these are going to be the typical things, and again, I write about this in the guide. You can read through this all if you're ever confused on the exact items, situations, or anything like that. But these are pretty much going to be your first couple items. Then you're always going to go Mortal Reminder as your 4th item. Thrilda's Grudge is super rare that you're actually going to go it, because it's only really valuable if the enemy have 0 healing, and even in that case, the crit that you get from Mortal is still pretty valuable. So I pretty much always go Mortal Reminder, and you're usually fighting people with healing in top lane. Or even mid lane. I mean, usually someone's going to have healing. So typically you're going to want to go for Mortal Reminder. Then always Black Cleaver as the 5th item, / again 4th, just if we count Boots, we say it's the 5th item. And then lastly, you go a defensive item depending on the game. So you might go Sterix Gage if you just need general defensive, like stuff or whatever. Guardian Angel if they have a bunch of AD, and Mob Mortius if they have a bunch of AP. And then you could also go for Edge of Night if you do just want to block a spell, like if you want to block like an Ash Arrow or something like that. It's going to be pretty good to do that as well. After that, for enchants, there's kind of 3 options. I actually don't write about the 3rd option, but Stasis is going to be the thing you go most often. Quicksilver after that if they have a lot of CC. And then lastly, you can go Proto Belt if you're really not scared of anything from the enemy and you just want to be really aggressive, but this is going to be more rare, but you can still do this if you want to. So then the additional build notes, again, we kind of wrote about how you replace Serpent's Fang with these items if you ever need it instead of Youmuu's or Duskblade. You can always just go for Serpent's Fang if the enemy have a bunch of shielding. And then Edge of Night can similarly replace any of those 2 items if the enemy have stuff like an Ash Ultimate, for example, or a Twisted Fate gold card. But again, we also, for you lazy people, we give you an exact build. You can go every game. That's always going to work out well. That's going to be Boots of Dynaism, Eclipse, Youmuu's Ghostblade, Mortal Reminder, Finish Stasis, Black Cleaver, Sterix. So if you just want a general build that will never be bad, go that build. And then here's the alternative build, which again, I actually really like this build as a top laner, especially into tanky / bruiser matchups. So if you're into a tankier team comp, try out Boots of Dynamism, Thundered Sky, Trinity Force, Black Cleaver, Mortal Reminder, and Edge of Night with the exact same runes, but instead of Coup de Grace, you go for Giant Slayer or Cut Down, but just Giant Slayer, you know what it's called. So these are the typical runes again here, as you can see here. First Strike, Brutal, Coup de Grace, Legend Alacrity, and Bone Plating. And then for the ability order, you're going to do your first ability, second ability, third ability. Pretty straightforward in terms of leveling. However, on level 1, make sure you upgrade your first ability. On level 2, you want to take your third ability. And then on level 3, you'll take your second ability. But then once you're leveling up the abilities, you upgrade your first ability, then second ability, then third ability for leveling up. Always go Flashing Knight, pretty straightforward. And then we'll show you guys the different combos. So here, the first thing I want to note is that if you use your ranged second ability, then you switch to melee form, you can get fast auto attacks in that form. So again, you're going to see all of these on the website, these the combos kind of, you know, in this video form. I can't seem to full screen it, so you're gonna, if you really want to see, you know, a bigger picture of it, just go and watch on the website. I guess it's a good plug for the website. But again, here you can see how if you just switch to melee form after going in ranged second ability, you get fast auto attacks. Then the second one to note is that if you do auto attack in your melee form, you get mana back. So that's kind of this one here. So that's also something that's important to note. If you want to manage your mana properly, make sure you're utilizing the fact that you can auto attack in melee form, and then you won't have mana problems, because a lot of people complain about mana problems on Jayce, but I actually pretty much never deal with mana problems, apart from maybe the very early game every once in a while. And that's because I'm very good at utilizing the fact that my melee auto attacks will give me mana back. And so then going into, again, the first real combo, this is the poke. It's pretty simple. Again, you just use your first ability and then you tap the first ability again, or you can use first ability and then third ability, because if you tap the first ability right after using it, it will place your third ability in front of you. And so you can see here in this video right at the top, all I do is first ability, then tap it again, and I get some good poke off. After that is some flash combos. So the first one is just first ability, flash, then you tap your first ability. It just increases the range, obviously, because then you can catch people out from further. And so you can see me doing it there in that top again. And it looks like these ones are able to be full screen, so I don't know why the other ones weren't, but it looks like we can on these ones. So here, the melee flash combo is pretty simple, and it's kind of the Lee Sin insect. You're just going to first ability, third ability, flash someone. So you're going to watch here. We'll show you this. And then we just do that again, and we'll just show you one more time. You're going to first ability onto them, third ability flash, and you can knock them into your teammate. This is really good for setting up ganks. So anytime you want to set up ganks, if your jungler is coming by, you can knock someone backwards. Or if somebody goes onto you and they're close to your turret, you can just third ability and first ability them, or third ability flash them right under your turret. After that, this one starts in melee form, this next combo. And it's pretty similar to the same combo, but it's a bit more, you know, damage. So again, you're going to first ability on your opponent, second ability mid-air, third ability, and then flash. And then once you click flash, you're going to immediately ultimate. And then after you ultimate, because again, now you go to a range form, you're going to use your first skill, tap your first skill again to get, again, that poke combo off, second ability, and then auto attack. So you're going to see, again, it's going to be a bit more complicated. These are things that if you really want to get good at Jayce, you need to go into practice tool and practice, because they're hard. So I would recommend pulling up the website, going into practice tool, trying all of these combos yourself, trying to get better at them, and then trying to do them in a game afterwards. So again, you're going to see here the full combo. We do that. Again, same combo as before, but then right after we switch to range form to get additional damage onto someone. So we'll show you guys one more time here once it resets. So again, we jump onto them, we insect them, and then we get switch and do our full combo in range form to get as much damage as possible. So again, this one starts in range or in melee form. Again, typically when someone's in a bush, you can do this. So you're going to use your melee first ability, then midair, again, second ability. Once you land that auto attack, you're going to third skill the enemy away, click your ultimate, then again, use your first skill, tap it again. Same combo, basically. So very, very similar as before, and for some reason, this one also doesn't have full screen. So some of them have full screen, some don't. I'm not exactly sure why. But either way, again, if you just watch in the top here, you'll see it again once it shows up. So again, we just first skill them, then we knock them away, and then we start just doing our full range combo, which again, after you knock them away, you're going to first ability, then tap your first ability again, then auto attack second ability, because your ranged second ability is an auto attack reset. Again, I know if you're new to Jayce, you're not going to know all these combos right away, and that's fine. The point is that you can slowly practice these in practice tool or whatever, because it is going to take some time. After that, the next combo. After that, the next combo here is the same thing, so we'll have to talk about that. No, this just has the writing wrong. So the writing here is wrong. Okay, so I was reading this. We'll talk to Royal about how the writing here is accidentally copy-pasted the same thing here. Maybe it's my fault. I forget exactly why it's like this. But either way, this combo here in this video, again, the writing is mistaken next to it, but basically what you're going to do, you're going to start in your range form, you're going to first ability, then you're going to first ability again, you're going to auto attack, second ability for an auto attack reset, and then you're going to switch to your melee form. You're going to use your first ability, second ability mid-air, then once you land onto someone, you're going to auto attack, third ability, and then auto attack again. And so as they're getting knocked back, you need to make sure you auto attack while they're mid-air, and then the attack speed from your melee or from your ranged second ability while you're in melee form will allow you to get more damage onto the enemy. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Again, the writing here is wrong, so we'll try to fix that before the website actually comes out, because I'm recording this kind of right before it comes out. But again, just the explanation I gave you guys, then we'll make sure that this explanation is actually correct next to it. And then this is the same combo, except you're going to just use your first skill with your flash. And so again, we have a full combo here to kind of show you guys. So basically, first ability flash, then you do the exact same thing, which again is, if you just watch it and kind of slower, maybe we can even slow it down. Can we slow it down? Yeah. So I'll kind of slow it down to 0.5 speed and sort of talk through each part of it, because this is really the full combo. This is everything that you can do, every combination kind of put together. And so again, first ability, flash, first ability to get the first damage off. Then when I walk up to him, I'm going to auto attack him. And then I'm going to hit my second ability for an auto attack reset to get an additional auto attack. I'm going to switch to melee form with my ultimate. I'm going to jump on them, and then second ability mid-air. Then as I'm going, I auto attack. Third ability as I'm auto attacking. And then as he's getting knocked away, watch me auto attack him again. So he's getting knocked away, and then you saw me auto attack again to get additional damage on him. And that's the absolute maximum damage combo that you can get with a flash combo as well. So that is just the max damage combo if you can get it off. And in general, any Jayce combo is really going to require you to kind of mix and match different things, just because that's how the champion works. It has a lot of different combos, and depending on the scenario, you're going to have to utilize them differently or in a different order or whatever, because it is pretty complicated. You know, the champion does have a lot of abilities and everything like that. So just something to keep in mind there. Okay, so now moving on to the strategy section. So we have a separate section for Baron and top lane, or Baron and mid lane, because they're very different in terms of how you play. So we're just going to kind of talk through this. I'm going to read through it, and then I'm going to explain to you guys the specific stuff. So, I mean, he wins like every early game matchup because of the fact that you have twice as many skills as someone else. So most of the time you can try to find an all-in on champions. So you just try to find, you know, whenever you can. If you don't know, then test if you can literally all-in someone level 1, because you can all-in most champions. And so if you don't understand, you know, your damage or whatever, just try it out. You'll learn. You might die sometimes or make mistakes, but that's how you get better. And then I did write down some of the main champions that you can't all-in level 1 from my personal experience. So these would be champions like Riven, Akshan, Lucian, Fiora, Aatrox, Yone, Yasuo, Garen, Darius, and Urgot. All of these champions, you can't necessarily all-in them level 1, but you might be able to all-in them at other levels or have other things. Again, all of the matchups depend on a lot, and so I can't describe every matchup, you know, just in writing or whatever. It takes time and whatever, but just generally speaking, make sure you're testing out very aggressively whenever you're playing this champion how to, you know, play it and whatever. And then now that we're, you know, done with the whole matchup thing, if they have second wind, then you got to make sure that you're timing your trades, or that you don't time your trades. You don't need to time your trades because they have second wind. But anytime that they have bone plating, you need to make sure you take trades after you already got their bone plating down, and when you have first strike and bone plating up. So this is a very important thing to find your all-in angles. So test if they have bone plating by getting an auto attack on them and looking if the 3 circles go around them, and then make sure you try to time for when their bone plating is not up to make your big trades. But again, if they have second wind, it doesn't really matter, because second wind doesn't, you know, it's not different depending on the time. You don't have to like wait for a cooldown the same way that bone plating has a pretty long cooldown. Next thing is, it's very important to have lane priority in the lane in the early game especially. So you got to make sure that you keep your wave a little higher health than their wave so that it's going to slowly push into the enemy. There's a couple of reasons you want to do this. The first reason is because if you have lane priority, you're going to get a level up first. Getting that level up first means you can play around your level advantages. So you can utilize your level advantages really well to destroy the enemy when you're level 2 or level 3, and they're just level 1 or level 2 or whatever. Additionally, Jayce gets ganked a lot. He's a pretty easy champion to gank because he is relatively squishy in comparison to the average bruiser, and so having the lane pushed means that you can at least get the wave before you get ganked, and so the enemy can't crash the wave or get as much of an advantage if they do end up ganking you. And then you are also a very good turret pusher, so you want to make sure that you have the lane pushed so that if you do end up killing someone or something, you can get a couple plates before taking a recall or something like this. In general, whenever they go for last hits, make sure you poke them in your range form, and then once they get low enough, you're going to start using your full combo in melee form as well to then destroy them and all in them. So typically you're going to use melee form after you land poke to try to, again, get some extra poke on someone, or you're going to use it to get some mana back. Reading through the rest of this, make sure you're keeping track of the jungle pathing as best you can. Again, I'm not reading through all of this stuff necessarily. You can read it all on the website. I'm just talking about the main points and whatever, but make sure you're keeping track of jungle when you can. That's a very important thing, again, because of the fact that you're very easy to gank. So when you see your jungler pathing towards you, try to be a lot more aggressive. When you see your jungler pathing away, try to relax a bit. Just make sure you're farming up. Maybe get some poke when you can, but you don't need to go in melee form as much unless you're trying to get mana back. That type of thing. And then again, yeah, like make sure you're playing more aggressive when you have your flash up and these types of things. But overall, make sure you're playing very aggressive because Jayce is very aggressive and definitely needs to test his limits. So that's overall going to be the early game for Jayce Baron lane. Then going on to the mid game. So obviously it's going to depend how the early game went for how you play. In general, you're going to try to snowball your lead. If you do have, a good lead early on, you're going to really try to just go for as much gold as possible. You're going to find gold on the map wherever you possibly can. Again, the goal is probably 900 plus gold per minute up until Elder Dragon, meaning you get up to 4 items and you're enchant by 18 minutes. And then you really want to pop off kind of on that Elder Dragon. But in general, the goal is really to snowball. Get as much gold as possible. You can do this by getting your own lane's gold and turret first, then pushing out your own lane's, wave and whatever, and then rotating to other parts of the map. After that, trying to get other turrets, trying to help out your team, utilizing first strike really well, all these types of things. In general, the goal is just as much gold as possible in the mid game so that you can then pop off later on in the game. But there is a difference if you fall behind. If you fall behind, you're still also trying to get as much gold. But now, instead of side laning to get gold, you're going to split push. And so the difference between side laning and split pushing, and I have a video on this so you can check that out, is basically side laning is just trying to get gold in the side lane and then pushing out that side lane to rotate and help your team or get, other parts of the map. Split pushing means you're actually trying to take that turret and draw people to you and distract them. So when you're behind, it's better to draw people to you, distract them, and try to push turrets because you are behind, so you're not as valuable in fights or in other parts of the map. But when you're ahead, side laning and then going to help your team is better because you want to be in more fights because you are stronger. So that's basically the overall goal. Again, when you're split pushing, your goal is more just to draw people to you. Sometimes you can even die over and over, kind of similar to that Scion strategy when you are Jayce because you push turrets really fast. So if you fall really far behind but your team's doing well, sometimes the best thing to do is to just die for turrets and die for waves to keep that pressure on the side lane. And then in late game, the main goal is to push out waves before the team fights. If you push out those waves before the team fights, then you can easily get control of the dragon or herald or baron or whatever it is, whatever objective you need to get control of. Then you can poke the enemy out of that really well because you have the first move onto the objective. Once you poke the enemy out, that you can then look for a combo to one-shot them once they are poked out by going into your melee form or whatever, and just utilizing the combos, all that type of thing. So overall, that's going to be the main way that you're going to play Jayce in the Baron lane. Moving on to mid lane, it's going to be pretty similar. The only difference is, or there's a couple differences, but the first difference, in the mid lane, you're typically going to want to go ward enemy raptors level 1 because it gives you really good vision of enemy jungle pathing and it gives you a chance to all in the enemy because oftentimes if the enemies show up on that side of the map and it's just the enemy mid laner, you can often 1v1 them. So you only want to go for this ward if you know that you can all in the enemy mid laner level 1. Basically, you can all in most enemy mids level 1, which is why he's so good overall as a mid laner, because most enemy mids are squishier and easier to all in level 1, which is why, again, mid lane is definitely his best role overall. In mid, usually you can push the first wave quite fast, and then you get level 2 from that, Once you get level 2, you can get some poke with your ranged combo. I only recommend pushing it really fast and doing this into mages. If you're into an assassin, then you're going to play it more like you would play it in top lane, where you slowly push it and try to punish them for last hits. So basically, when you're outranged, you're going to push really hard, and when you're not outranged, then you're going to, again, play it more like top lane. Or again, if you're into a really weak early game champion, you can also keep the wave neutral. So a champion like Veigar, for example, because you can then find really good all-in opportunities into them. But in general, again, if you're in a hard matchup or a matchup that outranges you or whatever, you're going to push really fast to try to play for the level advantages. Otherwise, you're just going to play to keep the wave more neutral and then punish the enemy for last hits. Make sure you're recalling when you have enough gold for boots. That's a really important thing to keep in mind as well. And then if you are, getting boots and whatever, oftentimes you're going to start pushing the wave really hard and then looking for roams and looking for wards, these types of things. So that's typically what you're going to do in the early game after those boots. Then in the mid game, you're going to often let your ADC and support come to the mid lane and then start side laning similar to how you would in Baron lane. Again, we're not going to write all the same things. It's pretty much the same way to play the mid game as mid lane or Baron lane. The only difference is now you might be split pushing more often on the same side of the objective rather than the opposite side, because oftentimes a split pusher or a top laner will go on the side lane of the opposite side of wherever the next objective is spawning. But a mid laner will usually side lane on the same side of wherever the objective is spawning. And then obviously if you're dual lane, don't come to mid lane, then you just keep staying in mid lane. And then late game team fighting is the exact same as Baron lane, so we won't go through that. Okay, now into Jayce counters. So he struggles against tanks in general. Tanks are not good for Jayce. The way to play into these tanks is to just hard trade on your first strike and then not trade any other time. So you're only going to really trade around your first strike. Otherwise, you're just not going to trade. But generally, anything that can also stack armor or anything that can cancel any of your abilities, all these types of things are hard. So again, Malphite is hard because Malphite obviously can stack a bunch of armor and he gets second ability. From his second ability, he gets a bunch of armor. Gragas is really good because Gragas' third ability can stop your first ability. He also Gragas has sustain from his passive, and any champ with a lot of sustain is very hard for a poke champion like Jayce. And then Gragas also has poke. Jayce also struggles into poke. Garen similarly has sustain from his passive. Garen has really good, tankiness and is just overall really hard to deal with. Ornn, very good into the lane phase and scales much better than Jayce, and again, very tanky. Ornn also has the benefit of being able to buy items in lane, so as soon as Ornn hits those plated steel caps, good luck killing him. And then Sion, pretty similar to these other tanks, again, for similar reasons. Ranged lane bullies like Akshan and Lucian also are a bit hard. Both of them, if they have exhaust, will beat you, but it's closer. So if you're pretty good at these champions, like at Jayce or whatever, you're going to be able to beat those champions, but it is a harder matchup in comparison to the average matchup. But if you just focus on poking them, and again, you do the thing that we said with it, which is like, pushing the lane pretty hard, and then just playing around those level advantages, you'll be fine. Then Riven is a pretty skill-based matchup. Overall, Jayce would beat a good Riven if you're really good at Jayce, but it's very easy to make a mistake into a champion like Riven. Also similar to Aatrox or Darius, all of these champions you technically can beat and probably will beat. However, if you make one mistake, then you're going to get one shot by them because they do have, very punishing kits if you do make any mistakes. In general, most bruisers will beat you as soon as you give them the lead. Anytime that a bruiser gets plated steel caps before you get boots of dynamism, you're screwed. Anytime that they get a little bit of a lead, they'll have too much armor, they'll have too much tankiness, they'll have too much all-in potential. So basically, Jayce is extremely punishing anytime you make a mistake in the bruisers. However, he's also an amazing snowballing champion, and if you're able to properly lane into these champions, manage your wave well, keep track of jungle, make sure you're recalling on good timers, you're going to be fine into these matchups. It's just, again, there is a bit of a difficulty in that. And then again, the one important note for beating these tank counters is basically trade when you have first strike and bone plating up, as we mentioned before. Play around getting that gold lead. You don't need to kill them, you just need to get a gold lead on them, which you can do by farming well and playing around your first strike. Now we have easy matchups. Basically every squishy champion in the game will lose to Jayce. He's so good against squishy champions, but especially champions like Veigar, Kayle, Kassadin, Kennen, Teemo, Vayne, Vladimir, Lissandra, Seraphine, and Orianna. So we just wanted to mention all those because those are a lot of the easy matchups. Pretty straightforward. You pretty much one-shot them at all points in the game. So it's pretty easy. Overall, that's going to be it for the Jayce guide, though. We also have my stream linked here. Obviously, if you guys don't know, I do stream on Twitch and YouTube. I play Jayce a lot. I play other champions too, so you can obviously watch me play whatever it is that you want. But yeah, that is going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the Jayce guide and everything. And I'll have a Thresh guide tomorrow, and I'll see you guys later.